Good morning, literacy scholars. It's Miss Bardalis here again for Module 2, or Days 3 and 4 of this week, continuing on with our Compare and Contrast mini-unit. Let's go ahead and start by reviewing our objectives. Objective 1. Literacy scholars will be able to showcase their skill of comparing and contrasting the 1920s and the 2020s in America in writing by completing a comparative paragraph and a contrasting paragraph using best textual evidence. And our language objective for today, literacy scholars will be able to write a comparative paragraph and a contrasting paragraph on the 1920s and the 2020s in America using graphic organizers and sentence stems. Let's take a look at our key knowledge gained in this lesson. We're continuing to leverage background knowledge and context on the 1920s and the 2020s in America to write comparative and contrasting paragraphs. Our key skills gained in this lesson are writing a comparative paragraph that examines and explains the similarities of the 1920s and the 2020s in America, writing a contrasting paragraph that examines and explains the differences of the 1920s and the 2020s in America, and continuing to use key vocabulary of prohibition, suffrage, compare, and contrast in their context. For our do now for today, we're going to start with a drag and drop on the 1920s versus the 2020s using a Venn diagram. Your do now is to complete the Venn diagram that compares and contrasts the 1920s and the 2020s. Drag and drop each one where you think it best matches. You will also need to add 1 to 2 of your own. Go ahead and pause the video here so you can complete your do now on slide 4. We're now going to get started on our writing, so we're going to stamp it and write it. You have 3 statements you need to complete on how the 1920s and the 2020s in America are similar. Make sure you complete each statement in 2 scholarly sentences each. Use the sentence frame on the slide to help you. You also have a space to do contrasting differences between the 2. Again, make sure that you use 2 scholarly sentences for each. Go ahead and pause the video here so you can complete your stamp it, write it statements of similarity and differences on slides 6 and 7. We're now going to move into the meat of our writing task for today, writing for comparison and contrast. You are going to be writing 2 paragraphs. One is going to focus on comparing and discussing the similarities between the 1920s and the 2020s in America, while the other will focus on contrasting and discussing the differences between the 2 decades. Make sure that you write in full and complete sentences. Make sure that you use your best textual evidence. You must use a pair of quotes provided. That means both green quotes or both orange quotes. Great writers still write and include strong transitions as well as topic sentences. Here you can see what your comparative writing paragraph is going to look like. You're going to write it directly onto these slides in a total of 7 to 9 scholarly sentences. Use the sentence stems to help you as you go. Remember that quotes are not scholarly sentences, but you should be using evidence from the side of the slide to help. Your contrasting writing paragraph looks pretty similar. You're following the same structure and again using quotes given to you on the side of the slide. Once you finish your paragraphs, you do not have a mastery check for this lesson. Your mastery check is just to make sure that you've completed both Module 1 and 2 for the week and that they've been submitted in Google Classroom. I hope you had a good time this week working on our Compare and Contrast mini-unit. I'm excited to start our next unit next week, but in the meantime, I hope you all have a relaxing weekend.